folks between rounds and get some insight to exactly what they think about this deck. And there's a couple players deviating from the norm. One of them, Edgar Magalhaes, also Jonathan Rossum deviated a little bit from the rest of the group. They were playing Thoughtcast as opposed to Whir. They had no copies of Whir in their deck.
Yeah, 2 Thoughtcast instead of the 2 Whir.
And it looks like Zan playing Whir. The players who played Thoughtcast said they didn't think Whir actually did anything. They felt like you wanted to be as linear as possible. You had 3 threats, which if left unchecked would just win the game on their own. Emery, Urza, and I'm blanking on the last one now. Fill me in, Craig. Oko, thank you very much. There we go. That's the one we're worried about. Any one of those 3s can run away with the game. Edgar said you just want to maximize your chances of finding them. You play Thoughtcast, draw more cards, get those onto the battlefield. We'll see how these Whirs work out for Zan. Thus far, only a Gilded Goose for Zan. Chris Iaali, pretty good start on his side of the battlefield. Had Ether Vial turn 1, used that to make Champion of Perish on turn 2, followed it up with a Thalia.
Yeah, this is a great start.
It's nice draw.
It's the pressure out of the Humans deck with the combination of some disruption, and obviously being on the play is just massive in these matchups.
Zan playing to attempt to put 4 Lotus Box members in this top 8. As we said, this Simic Whir is a deck, the story of this tournament in many ways.
Yeah, when you show up with your team of 7 or 8 players and 4 of you make the top 8, you have just crushed the field.
Yep, with a brand new archetype essentially.
Yes.
Let's not forget Iaali Kassis either, also occupying some of that top 8 space with a green-based version of Urza.
Well, it just speaks to how powerful these strategies are, right? Like, even if you aren't on the newest, best iteration of the deck, it is still one of the best things that you can be doing in the format.
Absolutely.
Ooh.
Engineered Explosives on 1.
Yeah, Engineered Explosives, it's such a funny interaction against the Thalia. Because you can announce it for any amount, pay the 1 extra, and then you get the counters that you want. And I like this, just cleaning up the board, saying, all right, I'm not going to let you snowball out of control with your pressure and your free creatures out of your Ether Vial. Definitely worth it there for Zan to just lose his board, you know, in order to kind of slow down the entire game here.
We've seen these players a few times willing to give up their Gilded Goose.
Give up the goose.
Right. Sometimes you just don't get to keep the goose. Chris Iaali now has to rebuild. Meddling Mage is going to be step 1. We'll figure out exactly what that's naming. It's going to name Urza. Really can't say enough about this deck from the Lotus Box team. Pushing the archetype forward in a very dramatic fashion. Here's Mystic Sanctuary from Zan.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many little things as we've watched this deck over the course of 2 days that just really stand out. When you show up, I mean, we've said this so many times, you know I hate the Snowlands, but they are super powerful. When you show up with tons of basics and the Astrolabe, you are not susceptible to things like Blood Moon. Your deck's going to be very consistent. You're always going to have the mana to cast your spells, and the Astrolabe is just the best artifact when you're trying to accumulate artifacts on the board. Also, they've got this a little control package. We're playing lots of basics. Now we can play Mystic Sanctuary. Also great.
You know what else we can play? Oko.
Yeah, obviously Oko is the biggest step forward with this deck, but I don't want that to be 100% of the focus.
Right.
Because
I don't think it should be. I think
there's so much else that they've done to get this deck where it is.
I think this deck is a combination of its parts. And yes, Oko shines in many, many moments. It answers many problems for this Urza deck. But it's really about how well the pieces play together. And like Edgar said, it's about presenting these 3 threats that you just must answer or you will die, period. And honestly, I would include the Mystic Sanctuary engine in that same boat. If you do not have a way out from that Cryptic Command Lock, you'll die to that too. Here's a nice response from Chris Iaali. It's Reflector Mage bouncing Arkham's Astrolabe.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of an awkward one to send back to the opponent's hand.
Well, when it costs 2, I'm much more okay with it.
Yeah, but think of the amount of time that Zan has here.
Sure.
Because all of these attacks have to go at Oko.
Yeah, because Oko has 1 billion loyalty.
So just giving him more cards and more time, it's a dangerous place to be.
Zan reading this Reflector Mage, trying to figure out if he can redeploy Arkham's Astrolabe on this turn. Craig, survey says...
I believe he can.
Okay. Why do you believe that?
So it's not a creature spell anymore. We'll try to get a confirmation for everyone on that.
That seems logical to me. Here's Gilded Goose. I mean, I think we'll be confirmed whether Zan plays it or not, right?
Yes.
That'll be a very clear indicator.
I've been wrong about these things before.
Sure.
There are so many just interesting interactions like this that happen in a huge card pool like Modern.
Oh, nothing's intuitive either when you start messing with card types. Like, I have seen people get this wrong many times, and I would judge by the fact that Zan didn't play it. Probably means you can't. Could also want to hold up Cryptic, but...
Yeah, well, he can't cast the Cryptic through the Thalia.
Oh, very true, yeah.
Yep.
That makes me think you just can't play Arkham's Astrolabe. On Chris's side, you have to just feel the pain of playing against an Oko right now. On the last turn, no choice but to go after it, but now the walls are up again. A 3/3 Elk is blocking, some more loyalty has been gained.
You're kind of forced to just throw some creatures into that thing.
Right.
And when you've gotten your opponent to 11, you really want to be attacking them.
Right.
You don't want to just throw a creature away to the Elk and spend all of the rest of your attackers getting this Oko off the field, but I think it's exactly what you need to be doing this turn. Taking a look at Reflector Mage here, Brian, it says that creature's controller can't cast spells with the same name as that creature until your next turn.
Yep. That makes perfect sense. So it looks like Iaali might make a single attack here, trying to get some benefit from the exalted ability of the Noble Hierarch, making that Thalia 3 power.
And this is such a conservative line to be taking. I mean, if I'm Zan, I feel like I just happily throw the Goose in front of this thing. I make another Elk next turn, and Chris is in an even worse spot than he was before.
I hear you. Yeah, I don't think Zan is debating whether he'll block. It's about what he'll block with.
Yes.
He's thinking could be useful to have access to those repetitive sources of food. Wait a second.
Yeah, it might surprise us here.
Wait a second. Well, there goes Oko. What do we know, Craig? Nothing. Zan built this deck. I'll trust Zan. He's got something up his sleeve. Maybe another Oko.
Yeah, I mean, this is heavily dependent on the contents of his hand.
Absolutely.
What do you think he's doing? Thalia math?
I don't know. We've seen Zan play a lot here on the SCG Tour. Is one of our more deliberate players. Takes his time, thinks through every possible line. That kind of thoughtfulness, exactly why Zan leading the Player of the Year race for the SCG Tour. Looking to pad that lead a little bit this weekend. Step 1, Arkham's Astrolabe. Misty Rainforest. Announcing the top 8 of Standard Classic right now. I heard Dominic Harvey's name in that top 8. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Dom right in the thick of it for that Players' Championship invite.
Yeah, didn't do great in the main event, but definitely picking up just crucial points in one of our big side events here.
Zan going to go ahead and crack that Misty Rainforest. Zan, a big fan of full art snow-covered island.
I mean, aren't we all?
Much like Craig Krempels. And the next play for Zan is another Oko. Makes perfect sense why he was willing to give up the last one. It's going to come down, immediately go to 5 loyalty, an incredible number, make another elk. Now it's invincible. What you got, Chris?
Yeah, and a lord for Chris here to just pump his whole team would be huge.
Absolutely.
He needs something to put these creatures over the top, because attacking with one creature turn is not going to get the job done against this Planeswalker.
Yeah, Thalia's Lieutenant may be the best possible draw here. Let's see, what's the top of the deck kind? 3 mana being tapped for Iaali. Going to take a little damage from that Waterlogged Grove, fall to 14.
Do we have a Reflector Mage?
Looks like it. Another Reflector Mage comes down. Going to bounce the food token. Much better than bouncing an Astrolabe.
Oh, yeah.
Now we have to think about combat again, and just reaching for one creature again is Chris. Thalia goes after Oko.
Oh, Thalia, so why does it have so much loyalty?
Again, Craig short-circuited by Oko.
It's just such a good card.
We all feel it, Craig. We all get short-circuited sometimes by Oko.
I feel like this is just the new normal. A constant state of short circuit every time a new set comes out. What are we doing?
We are making elks and using the card as intended via its rules text, Craig. This is what Oko does. It's not particularly interesting, just a 3/3. Nothing to see here. Zan back in the tank, tapping a little mana. Looks like we have a Goose activation. Yeah, Goose is going to make a little food. Oko's going to make an elk sandwich. I think that Oko should be at 3 now.
Yeah, 3 loyalty. We'll get that adjusted.
Yep, there you go. Zan's got it for you. Don't worry about it. Flooded Strand, and looks like just past the turn. Back to Chris Iaali.
Yeah, and if Zan does have a Cryptic Command here, which would kind of make sense with how kind of slow and mopey his start's been, that 5th land is critical.
Mm-hmm. See a Kitesail Freebooter in the hand of Chris Iaali. Here comes Thalia again. Now we're going to double block. Astrolabe dies, Thalia dies. We've spent a lot of turns accomplishing very little in regards to that Oko. And I get it. I get the squeeze that Oko puts you under. Well, here's another Thalia. You're okay with the trade-off there, but still.
You are and you aren't, right? Because next turn, you have not made progress.
Right, and here's Metallic Rebuke denying that Thalia. Follow up Kitesail Freebooter. Going to take a look at the last card in hand for Zan. War of Invention. That's a good grab for Kitesail Freebooter.
Yeah, it's very fortunate that there was still some juice left over there for him to get.
Mm-hmm. So I talked about how Zan still playing War of Invention, able to use that to go find the Thopter Sword combo. The other part of Edgar's list, no Thopter Sword combo. Just doesn't think it's necessary anymore.
Sure, yeah. Yep.
I think that's really interesting. This is a lot about the power level of the deck, right? I don't need this infinite combo anymore. I have better things to do.
What happens if we turn the Freebooter into an elk?
Craig, these are the type of questions that man has been pondering since we first began to walk the earth. And if you think I have the answers to these great mysteries of the universe, you are sorely, sorely mistaken. My guess, it works like Deputy Detention. You still get the card back when the Kitesail Freebooter dies. But we continue to be surprised by the interactions when things become elks.
We need some simplified rules. Can we get an event that's just like, I don't know, one of the core sets only?
Right. I would like that. A little core set sealed, maybe.
Yeah.
Although the core sets really don't have any complexity fall off anymore at this point.
No, I want to go back. I want 5th edition sealed deck.
Oh, nice. Yeah, yeah.
Let's just cover that bad boy all day.
I feel like 10th edition is like the pinnacle of just boring vanilla cards in the core set. Maybe that's where we should go.
All right, I'm in.
Used to love 10th edition draft. 3rd Reflector Mage showing up for Chris Iaali. That's going to probably clean up one of these Elks, I'm assuming. And now let's just kill this Oko. Give up something to kill it. I guess Chris is afraid to give up that Meddling Mage. That's what this has all been about, I think. Doesn't want Zan to get access to Urza.
Yeah, well...
I guess we just can't even mount an offensive.
I was going to say,
spell bombs around.
With the spell bomb, Zan can still protect the Oko if he really wants to.
Right. Yeah. Now this attack feels too late. Can also unlock Word Invention if he needs to.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so awkward. The Oko has so much loyalty.
What are you talking about? Just 4 loyalty. That's a reasonable number.
It's been attacked like 30 times this game.
That might be true. That was an old Oko, Craig. This is the new Oko.
Oh, this one's only been attacked 2 or 3 times?
Right.
Yeah.
Elk hopping in front of something. I would guess Meddling Mage, but who knows? A bounce Meddling Mage. Okay, this makes a degree of sense. You don't want to give access to another Reflector Mage trigger, and you want to keep the Oko alive.
Yep.
Sure. Chris maybe gets to reset on that Reflector Mage, but it's hard to think of a better name than Urza. Zan takes a draw here.
I mean, just looking at this game, Chris has had all of these Reflector Mages.
Yeah, it's just one card on Zan's side. Just one card doing anything.
And Zan, he's got 7 lands in play. He's drawn so many lands. His graveyard's not that ridiculous. And still Oko is just dominating this battlefield.
Yeah. Oko alongside our good friend Gilded Goose. Let's give Goose some credit. Oko just going to make a food this time. If I see that, alarm bells are up for me. That means Zan probably has something else up his sleeve. Tapping 3 mana here. Another Oko. Sure.
What a disaster.
Another Elk.
Brian, I've had enough of this.
Get used to it, Greg.
All right, I'm back in.
Good.
Yes.
Because we are looking like we might have as many as 4 copies of this deck in the top 8, so you might be in for some mirrors. You and I only casting the quarterfinals, thankfully, and there's no way people... Wait, I can't even say that out loud.
Yeah,
they'll do it to us.
You be careful.
No, I'm not going to say it.
You
know what I'm thinking, though. You know what I'm thinking.
You are just setting us up.
I know. You give people a way to troll you, they will do it.
And it's okay. I still have an evasive attacker here. I can keep pressuring this Oko. No, 2 is not nearly enough.
No, probably not. Here's a Thalia. Here's a Meddling Mage. We will figure out exactly what that Meddling Mage is naming.
Should have been Oko the whole time.
Sounds like that Meddling Mage is going to name Engineered Explosives.
Yeah, it just feels like so many cards are a disaster for Chris now.
Yeah, I think Zan has access to more outs at this point. As the game goes on, you have to assume that's the way it works for his deck.
Yes, Explosives is definitely one of the worst cards, but now...
Urza's also really bad.
Yeah, you give him access to Urza, and that card's just super tough for Chris to beat.
Sure. At least he's running low on Okos at this point. Only one more Oko in the deck. Another Elk comes down.
Low on Okos, but he is certainly Elk rich.
I enjoyed someone saying Oko is what happens if you make Pack Rat good enough for every single format. I think that was Kyle Bogamez who said something to that effect. Well, time for some more attacks at Oko. Down to a measly 2 loyalty. That's right. We still have that exalted trigger.
Yeah, and only 2 more attacks and nothing out of Zan, and then Zan will need a chump block with this Gilded Goose, and then it'll be 2 more attacks after that.
All right.
Oh, how ridiculous.
Well, we are hell-bent now on Chris Iaali's side. Ether Vial comes out of the hand. Gilded Goose going to go ahead and make some more food. Honk. I'm just going to start doing the arena sound effects. Make it more immersive that way.
I was going to say you're going to start doing that because I feel like it's been happening for a lot of the day.
It does naturally come out. How about another elk? Oh, dear.
I don't know if I should encourage this or not, Brian.
Probably not.
Maybe it's what we deserve.
Looks like Zan up to something else. Moving around some mana. No, I'm just going to pass the turn back. Zan's like, why would I ever do anything? I have the Oko Goose combination. Okay, well, our flying attacker is getting a bit larger. No, it's not. Cryptic Command. Go ahead and counter that. Assume we're picking up that Mystic Sanctuary, and it looks like Chris has had enough. I agree, Chris. I'm right there with you.
Well, Zan's saying, I'm going to tap down your whole team, and I'm going to attack you with a lethal elk herd next turn.
Yeah, that'll do it. Gets the scoop from Chris, and now we are headed to the sideboard games, where hopefully Chris can make things a little bit better. Over in his sideboard, we're looking at 2 copies of Unsettled Mariner, 2 Collector Oof, 2 Deputy of Detention, 2 Damping Sphere, 2 Combo Console of Allocation, 2 Dismember, 1 Phyrexian Revoker, 1 Plague Engineer, 1 Militia Bugler. Before you start, Craig, I think here more than anything, I am feeling that pinch that we keep feeling when we try to sideboard against these Simic decks. There's so many things Chris has to account for. A lot of these cards seem great, but you can't sideboard 12 cards against Zan and expect your deck to function.
So yeah, that's the problem is so many of these cards are tempting, but a lot of them are not humans. And when you bring in all of these non-human cards, you know, your champions and your lords just don't have the same punch in those games. So yeah, I like Collector Roof. I like Deputy of Detentions. I like Combo. I think Dismember is playable. I like the Revoker. There's some pull for a Plague Engineer. The Militia Bugler kind of finds all of these different things that you only have 1 or 2 copies of.
You can't have them all, Craig.
But yeah, I agree. You cannot bring in that many cards that aren't all humans.
Right. All right. So some tough decisions for Chris Iaali, and I think it just speaks to what a great piece of deck building this Simic Wars deck is, that it forces him to make those decisions. Meanwhile, over on Zan's side, we were looking at 3 Damping Sphere, 3 Fatal Push, 2 Drown in the Lock, 2 Thoughtseize, 1 Nile Spellbomb, an Assassin's Trophy, a Pithy Needle, an Ensnaring Bridge, and a Graft Digger's Cage. What do you like if you're on Zan's side?
So Zan, you know, I love the 3 Fatal Push. Like, all you need is to buy time against this humans deck, and then what you do is just more powerful than what they're doing. It's possible you want the Assassin's Trophy as well. A card like Collector Oof is potentially a huge problem, and you need to make sure you have a lot of ways to deal with that card. I also like the Ensnaring Bridge. You know, if you look at these lists, Chris does not have that many ways to answer that card out of his deck.
No, very true. The other thing about this Simic deck, you know, we talk about some of these cards being good against Chris Iaali, or excuse me, against Zan Syed from Chris Iaali. None of them are good if they're an elk.
Yep.
And there's 4 copies of Oko in the deck now. So whether they're effective or not, you can shut them down very cleanly. 1 Planeswalker.
Yeah, I imagine Chris is going to have a slightly different strategy for whether he's on the play or on the draw.
Okay.
A card like Combo, I think, is much better when you're on the play. It snowballs a little bit harder. You're able to get it onto the board, potentially on turn 2 before your opponent has cast a lot of the spells out of their hand.
Yeah.
So I could see that maybe being in the deck on the play, but on the draw, you don't want it as much.
Could see that.
So we'll see if he takes an approach like that where on the play he tries to be as aggressive as possible, and then on the draw he has maybe a few more answers. He brings in the dismembers and maybe the deputies.
I like that approach. It makes sense to me. Well, Craig, you and I are sticking around next round for those quarterfinals, and you know how we do it here on the SCG Tour. We always leave it up to our viewers to go ahead and determine exactly what match we're going to see in the quarterfinals.
I love it. I love it. They never let us down.
Yeah, they don't always agree with us. We usually state our preferences, and they come up with something a little bit different most of the time. But you're right. They always give us a solid match, and I am expecting them to do the same this time. Do not let me down, Twitch chat. Don't make me watch the Urza Mirror. Don't do it.
Why do you say it out loud?
Here's
Brian,
the thing, Craig. No, here's the thing.
Come on, man.
Our viewers respect us. They appreciate we have brought them on this journey today.
I think you're enjoying this.
And I am willing to say, viewers, don't make us watch the Simic Urza Mirror. Please, I am begging you. I need this for my sanity. I have seen so many elks today. I've had enough. I would like to see good interactive Magic. There's going to be Grixis Death Shadow in the top 8, and we keep talking about how great these Grixis Death Shadow matches have been all day long.
Yep.
I am down for more of that. No matter what Death Shadow plays against, it's likely to be a good match.
All right. People at home, vote for whatever you want.
I trust them.
The heck with Brian's opinion.
I trust them. They will do the right thing.
Oh, listen, we barely know what we're talking about here.
Fact.
Pick the match. We'll talk about it. It's going to be great.
They'll be good to us. They respect us, Craig.
I'm expecting a very elky top 8 match.
I'm coming back either way. You can't get rid of me. You can't vote me out of here, so.
That's not one of the voting options?
No, that would be the landslide winner. That's why we don't put that choice up there. So I would judge by the timing of this, Chris on a mulligan, I'm assuming? Just because Zan's already got a hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris is on 6 presently.
Yeah, these Urza lists, it's kind of wild because they've got so many cards at 0 and 1 mana. But the engineered explosives is just so good against almost everything else in the field. You don't even care. Blow up my own board. It doesn't even matter.
Yeah. Modern in a nutshell, defined by the 1 and 2 mana spells, for sure. Engineered explosives, very good cleanup in this format.
Well, it's an enabler for them, where it turns on all of their deck, and it's a control element. It's just, like I said, there's just so many little pieces about these Urza decks and the Simic list specifically that they all work together. It all makes sense.
Yeah, we talked earlier about just how impressed I've been with Lotus Box throughout this entire year. And you can think back to so many innovations they've had, going back to like the Jeskai Planeswalkers deck. And that deck had many of the same hallmarks, just like beautifully chosen cards, specifically for certain purposes. Each piece played into the other one. I'm starting to get a feel for exactly how folks on Lotus Box build their decks. And they're very, very good at it.
Oh, this is a start.
Yeah, nice little start here. How about turn 1? Emery alongside Gilded Goose. Pretty high APTs here. Just perfects down in the yard. Okay. Thopter Foundry already in hand, by the way, for Zan.
Well, and Zan has access to potentially 4 mana next turn. Like, that's just wild.
Yeah, and like we said, you need to answer so many things out of this Urza deck. Chris Iaali does have the Dismember. Go ahead and clean up that Emery. But what if Zan just makes an Urza next turn?
Yeah, it's a very real possibility.
Chris Iaali just going to play Noble Hierarch, pass the turn back to Zan. Zan says, I'll take a peek.
Yeah, I think Zan just wants the extra card. You know, it's possible he doesn't have a land drop.
I think that is possible. See the Thopter Foundry. Thought I caught an Urza in that hand. I see an Engineered Explosives. Maybe a Fatal Push. Looks like it might be time for E on 1. turning that Mox Opal back on.
Yeah, I think Zan has no intentions of doing anything with that engineered explosives right away, but he wants the Mox Opal alive, especially going into next turn.
Makes sense to me. Zan thinking through this turn very carefully. I will say, I'm a little concerned with Zan's pace of play. I do think that if he has to play a third game here, could have a hard time. And that last game, it didn't go super long. It wasn't a short game, but it shouldn't have taken 30 minutes.
Oh, and so he took this line where
E on 0, play Thopter Foundry.
And he has the sword in the graveyard.
Yep.
Oh, I'm a little surprised to see this.
Eat a food, bring back sword? Is that where we're going?
So if he leaves the food around, we know that he has Urza, Lord High Artificer, in his hand. He could potentially just combo out next turn.
Right.
Missing a land drop on turn 2.
That's crazy, correct. Absolutely crazy.
Miss my land drop, make infinite guys, gain infinite life, play all the cards out of my deck on turn 3.
Well, it looks like Chris has something to say about that. It's time for Deputy of Detention.
And this is an interesting one. All of these cards are very juicy to go after. I think with Zan missing a land drop, you want to go after the Mox Opal or the Goose.
Looks like Chris disagrees. Thopter Foundry going to be the choice for Chris. Follow-up play, Ether Vial. Here's a Fatal Push. I'll take that back. Thank you. And we're headed back to Zan's turn. Didn't quite make out the draw there. We've got something to do with our mana. How about another Emery? Two Urzas.
Looked like a drown in the lock.
And still just going to pass the turn back. It's wild that Zan can't find a second land and just feels like he's in such a privileged position over Chris Iaali right now.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised Zan didn't take a turn off there, quote unquote, and use the Goose to pump out another food. But I mean, Emery having access to it just means he gets to draw an extra card every single turn if it stays on the board.
Not bad.
And it's kind of wild that Chris only has a couple of cards in his hand to work with.
Right. Going to go ahead and cash in Horizon Canopy to get another one. We're working with 3 cards now. I see a Meddling Mage. Looks like Mantis Rider, maybe? Yeah, Mantis Rider, Meddling Mage, Unclaimed Territory are the cards in hand for Chris Iaali. Going to deploy that Meddling Mage. We will figure out exactly what that is naming.
Oh, this is so rough.
Meddling Mage going to name Engineered Explosives. Looks like Zan's going to go ahead and make a Thopter. Sword of the Meek comes back from the graveyard. Nick Miller ready for battle now. Just an Urza away from wrapping this one up.
Nick shot me a look when we were off one of our rounds, and there were a whole bunch of his tokens on the battlefield, and he just got kind of lucky with that one. Oh, man. Oh, he's got the double box. That's the gosh.
That's going to be enough to make an Urza, and that is going to make infinite Thopters gain infinite life, and that means Zan Syed moving on to our top 8